In episode 3.5 of Unshuffled, we take an in-depth look at the fifth full-length album from modern metal legends Gojira, L'Enfant Sauvage. But first, as always, here's our awesome intro music from Seven Planets. Scotty D.
Hello, Matt. How are you? We got a ballad on this album. A ballad a la Typo Negative.
Ballad. Sellouts.
Yeah.
They've gone commercial. They've put a ballad on. Remember when Metallica did their first ballad? The backlash that band got. My God.
There was so for us it's been a couple of weeks, right? But
yeah.
if we were doing this in real time, it would have been 4 years since we had our last Gojira fix.
It would have been tough on the fans.
It would have been. So how are things?
Yeah, good. Just gearing up for Christmas. So happy Christmas to our listeners, or whatever. If you're listening to it at some point in the future, just think of the next holiday that's coming up and happy that one. Speaking of Metallica, we spoke briefly about them and the role of Jason Newsted on our last podcast. And I have recently discovered a new version. Now, there's been a few of these over the years, and Justice for All is widely recognized as a great album, but where's the bass? And there's been a few attempts to sort of reconstruct the bass and remaster it. But I saw one version put out by the Bass Channel, which is a YouTube channel for bass players. And there's a guy just playing the bass that should be audible on the album. And it's fantastic. It gives a whole new lease of life to the album. So I'll link to it in the show notes, listener. This is my preferred way, my preferred version of And Justice for All. They've taken it and they've improved it, and it's brilliant. So check that out, please.
So, but it's Newsted, right?
Well, Newsted his name is on the credits, and he was in the studio playing bass, but he was just squeezed out in the mix.
Right. So basically, it's just they just brought the volume up on his playing. It's not somebody.
This is just some dude, but he's playing what Newsted played. So It's not Newsted, and it's different because Newsted used a pick, and this guy's picking the strings with his fingers. So it's a slightly different style, but he's a very good bass player, whoever it is. And I think I prefer this to the ones that have tried to sort of isolate Newsted's bass and remix it. This one actually, I think, takes it. Is a bit better. I think that bass needed to be re-recorded rather than, drawn out of the mix somehow. It's really good.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's interesting. I look forward to checking it out in the show notes.
Yeah. But otherwise, things are good here, and I hope things are with you too. You've got a little holiday coming up, so that should be a nice chance to relax and listen to our next album.
And it will. We're gonna do a little beach holiday. Nobody's leaving the country, so we'll be doing an Indonesian Christmas.
Have you ever had a hot Christmas before?
No, it's funny because we were just talking. I was swimming today. I was swimming in the pool with the wife, the kids. We're all swimming in the pool, and we're just reflecting on the fact that we've never had a hot Christmas.
Yeah.
So this will be.
It won't feel like Christmas to you, but I'm in the depths of a European winter here, and it doesn't feel like Christmas to me either. So
right.
Christmas to me is barbecues and sunshine and cold beverages.
We've role reversed.
Yeah. Well, let me know how you go with it.
Well,
enjoy that.
Thank you. You as well. I see you're wearing nobody can see you, but you're wearing a toque and a flannel and a scarf right now.
Yeah, well, The heater makes too much noise here, so I've turned it off. Yeah.
So, all right, well, should we get into this?
Before we get into the album du jour, let me just remind our listeners who we are. We are Unshuffled, that you are listening to. We are bringing back the album. We recognize that an album is the best way to listen to music. Modern technology has changed the way we listen to music for the worse, I believe. We're trying to take things back to the good old days when you buy an album and you'd listen to it and you'd listen to it and you'd listen to it again. We are working through band by band, album by album, track by track, bands that we know we should have listened to, but we have never got around to it. We're two heavy music fans, but there's always a band that you've missed that's in the back of your mind. I should check them out someday. So we're doing that. Our current band is Gojira. We are now on their, fifth album are we up to?
Yes.
I've lost count. Something like that.
It is fifth.
Okay. It's called L'Enfant Sauvage, which is a lovely French phrase from a French band. They sing in English, and I don't think there's any. They have sort of scattered some French lyrics throughout in the past. I don't think there's any French on this album, though. But the title is French, L'Enfant Sauvage. So we're going to dive into it. We're going to break it down track by track after we discuss, the production and the cover and a few other things. Just to remind a listener, if you haven't listened or heard this album yourself, you should stop the podcast now. You should go and track it down, preferably a physical copy, but otherwise it's downloadable. This is their first one on Roadrunner, so I think you have to go. If you go to Gojira Music or just Google it, you'll find it. You should listen to this album in full at least once, but preferably a few more times. Make your own opinion and consider what we're saying as a sort of companion piece to the listening that you've already done. That being said, let's get into it. Scott's going to fill us in on the credits and the other sort of technical details around the album. So let's hear it, Scott.
So as I mentioned at the top, this is released in June 25th in 2012, and it's almost close to 4 years between this one and The Way of All Flesh. Now, I would assume that it's just massive touring, and I mean the band, right? It's just been a slow, since From Mars to Sirius, I guess just that steady incline of popularity, which I'm assuming would explain a gap of 4 years. But up until this point, there had been about 2 years between albums. Before.
Yeah, there was that heavy touring schedule. There was also a change of living arrangements for the band or the sort of driving force, Joe Duplantier, who moved to New York at some point between the previous album and this one, and a change of label as well. So they've moved now into the big time as far as labels are concerned, and this is their first release on the Roadrunner label.
And it was produced by Joe Duplantier and then Josh Wilbur. It was recorded at Spin Studios in Long Island, New York. So he's getting closer to Queens, where eventually their studio is going to be built and albums will be recorded. The lineup has not changed. I'm glad they didn't go with like The Wild Child and they went ahead and went with the French, because then it sort of sounded like a bad Motley Crue song.
Yeah, well, as it is, I think it sounds like a new fragrance from Jean-Paul Gaultier or something. I'm just looking at Josh Wilbur's CV.
Oh, right.
At the moment. He has done a lot of metal, but also some things outside of metal, I can see. LCD Sound System, for example. But metal bands have included some new metal stuff like Puddle of Mud and Limp Bizkit as a sort of mixer, digital editor. He has worked with Lamb of God. Yeah, did a lot of work with Lamb of God, and they also had Randy Blythe. So there's obviously a big connection here with Lamb of God. Perhaps that's how they got in touch with him. Avenged Sevenfold, as well as Pink.
Oh, right.
So Avril Lavigne. So there's a real sort of range of artists that Josh Wilbur works with. But there's plenty of metal bands on his list. Hatebreed, Trapped, who are they're having their critics at the moment. Trapped on Twitter that caused a bit of controversy lately. But yeah, I mean the big one from metal circles would be Lamb of God, as well as Avenged Sevenfold and Hatebreed. So there's some big names in the sort of newish kind of metal movement that Josh Wilbur has worked with.
So should we talk about the artwork right now before we go into the tracks?
Yeah, well, I've got the physical copy here because I can do that. I must say the CD cover is... I guess CDs went through a phase around 2000 to 2010 where they sort of said, if people are going to buy the CDs, we need to throw everything at the packaging. We need to make these really amazing 50-page booklets and extra things in the pack. And then at some point they just gave up and said, you know what, let's just try and save money now because no one's buying CDs and no one ever will, no matter what we do. And I think this is the first one in that phase. This is a much smaller booklet. We don't have the same degree of artistic photography that Joe's sister Gabrielle Duplantier had put into the previous ones. There is a band photo by her, but much less artistic thought into the booklet that goes with the CD. And I got to say, what do you think of the artwork?
The album cover. This one, I'm going to go ahead with it. We talked about this. I think this is my favorite. I like the whole, you've got this whole idea of the shadow of the head with the tree, right? That is sort of representing the savage. And then behind it, sort of that city that awaits, right? That journey from the foreground to the background. If this album is what, I guess that sort of that personal journey of Joe Duplantier as sort of reflected through the lyrics, I think the album cover captures that perfectly.
I've got the opposite thought. This is my least favorite album cover of theirs. I mean, it's got the flames and the tree that we've seen on previous, so that it's consistent. I don't know. It's just a bit. To me, it's a bit of a Microsoft Paint job gone wrong. I don't know. I like the images, but I don't know.
Gone wrong.
I'm not an art critic, but this appealed to me least. And interestingly, Joe doesn't do the art on the next album, so maybe he sort of recognized that he'd come to the end of his visual artistry.
Stop it. He recognized he couldn't do any better.
Maybe, yeah. Well, we'll leave our listeners to decide love or hate, but we have different opinions on that.
Well, I'm curious to see where our opinions go with the album in general now.
Yeah, well, we have not discussed this at all, listeners. So
normally there's a text at least.
Normally there's a little bit of an inkling.
The bow, but there's been nothing this time.
Nothing at all. We are completely going in cold here.
All right.
Before we get to the thoughts overall on the album, let's go track by track, and then we'll summarize at the end.
So track 1 is Explosia. I think this is a great opening track. I think that Gojira they typically have great opening tracks. I think this one's no different. The pick scratches, the emphasis in the beginning, I like that. It sort of harkens back to a sound that has been over the past couple albums. The BBC reviewed this album when it came out, right? So read the review of this one not as a retrospective, but actually as it had been released. The BBC described it as iron chewing thunder. That's got to be like the highest praise you can get.
Yeah. And
from the BBC, no less. I like the doomy breakdowns that come at like the third verse and just sort of intermittently come in and out. There's I linked it in the show notes, but there's recorded filming of a live performance at Webster Hall in New York, which is just so good. Just the intensity, the energy of what they capture in the song.
Yeah, great song. And as you said, we know straight away, yeah, this is Gojira. We've got that next quick, as you said. We also have a go to kick off the lyrics, which is, they had another go, I think, in Backbone, was it, that had a go?
That sounds right.
I actually saw an article of the top 10 songs that have a go in metal. I'll link to that in the show notes too. This wasn't one of them. No, it wasn't one of them, but this is a really good go to kick off. It's kind of like three songs. There's three movements, at least, to this song, three distinct movements. The energetic opening, the sort of slower anthemic middle section, and then a slow one-note riff outro. So, and the outros throughout this album, and I'll just foreshadow, there are a lot of good outros on this album. In the middle section, we get some sampling, which hasn't been used a lot before, and a little bit more layering and a little bit more texture than we've heard in the past on their albums. So it gives it a bit of a symphonic feel. There seems to be a bit more texture. Maybe there's a bit of, and it's hard to pick out all the time, but it sounds like there's a bit of synth or something in the background at times. And in the outro, we get that interplay between the guitars. Again, some more samples, some more layers, but we're starting to hear the separation between the two guitarists a bit more on this song. And again, that recurs later in the album too. So it's a good callback to what they've done in the past, but they're also introducing some new elements that we haven't heard before, the layering, the sampling, and the interplay between the two guitarists.
It's interesting that you say that, because that was going to be one of my questions as we get later on, but I'll pose it now. I had two questions where I was just asking myself, did I miss this before, or is this new to the production value now? And the one of them is, I feel like before we've had discussions, we can go back and talk about where we couldn't disaggregate what was Christian Andreu and what was Joe Duplantier. Here, I feel like I can hear it clearly. I can hear it throughout this album entirely what Christian Andreu is bringing, sort of as he is adding this layer and this depth and these nuances to the song that I don't remember hearing before. So I don't know if that's just new to the production value, if that's new of what he's bringing to the band, or if that's just new to what I'm paying attention to.
No, I agree. It is different on this album to what we've heard in the past, and an improvement, I must say. So,
which brings me to the question that comes up in the next track, and the next track is the title track, L'Enfant Sauvage. And the one thing that I'm noticing with this one is that, and I don't know why this is dawning on me here now on track 2 of album 5, but he can sing. He sort of doesn't do much by way of Cookie Monster vocals anymore, right? I mean, there was a little bit of that kind of in the first couple albums, but even when he kind of goes into that more of aggressive screamo style, it isn't that anymore, right? I mean, there's that hint of melody to everything he does now. And again, I don't know when this started. If I'm just noticing now, if this started before, but I noticed it here. I noticed it in this song. For whatever reason, it jumps out at me.
Yeah, I agree. His singing has improved. I also think the phrasing has improved. Often on previous albums, they seem to just try and jam words in where they could, whereas here I think they're respecting the rhythm of the lyrics as much as the rhythm of the other instruments, and there's a lot more thought put into how these lyrics are going to be phrased around the riffs that we're playing. It's more predictable than it has been in the past, and as a result, I think more effective. You linked to a how to play video of this one, of L'Enfant Sauvage, the second track, which I found really interesting, and we'll again put that in the show notes. Interesting that he just says this is an easy song to play.
Right.
Like he just comes out straight away. This, it's not hard to play. It's a one-note riff, and it's not the only one-note riff on this album. We've heard one-note riffs from in the past. There is an art to a one-note riff, though, and you can see that in that how to play video. It's one note, but then you need to you can differentiate in other ways. You can play a note with a different picking style to the other notes. You can put some more emphasis on particular notes. So there's certainly an art to a one-note riff, and a band like Helmet, in the 90s was a master at it. But Gojira seems to really have focused on the rhythms of their one-note riffs and found ways to make them really interesting.
Did you see the other thing that I linked was the video?
The music video.
Yeah, the music video, sort of stop motion, kind of early Tool style.
Yeah.
It really reminded me, though, of first off, it was that idea that there was the sort of that virus taking over everything, which felt somewhat fitting for our current times now. It also really reminded me of this NPR piece about the former king of India. I don't know if you've ever listened to it, but it was just about the former king of India living in the jungles outside of Delhi, or inside of Delhi. I'm sorry, inside the city itself. And it's just, but the way that it describes his castle, if you will, that he lives in is straight out of this video. It's fascinating.
This is a much more focused and short track than we're used to from them. So, it's over quickly. Again, there's use of background sounds. There's a didgeridoo or some sort of native indigenous type instrument from somewhere in the world that we've heard from them in the past, but they're using it to add layers to this song. There's also, at the 3-minute mark, the whole band stops and you just hear an isolated bass note before they leap into the last section, but you just hear this big doo, just so effective. So they're pulling out some tricks that they haven't really done in the past, and I think it's showing a newfound mastery in the studio that, we've always known just by watching the videos, what a great live band they have been, but it seems like they're now transferring. Now that they're now becoming a great studio band as well as a great live band.
Jumping into track 3, the axe, it's everything you've been saying so far is sort of, I felt like tracks 1, 2, and 3 work together as just sort of this even opening chapter of this album. And it's sort of all of that comes to play in this third song as well. Again, but all 3 of them are playing with meter, they're playing with rhythm, they're playing with sort of this finding the complexity in the simplicity, right? And it's not simple. I mean, it is complex. Even if they are just playing one riff, it's still, there's this layer of complexity to the whole thing, as you talked about. And this one, all of a sudden, just in the middle of the song, there's this haunting guitar sound, right, that just sort of takes over. And then again, as you had mentioned, it's just got this great riff, that sort of this outro that just carries us out of this. And I feel like this sort of, so much of what we've said about each of these tracks works with all 3 of these tracks together. They just sort of form this nice package chapter.
Yeah, so this is, tempo-wise, this is a slower song than the first 2. So this is their real sort of stomp. It reminded me a bit of Yama's Messengers off the previous album, that change of pace song early in the album. And we're hearing more of those layered vocals. And I love that last minute or 2. This is the first time I've made a note of it, but at this point I'm realizing that I love the sound on this album. The last album was really clean, beautifully produced really, but I find the dynamic range on this, I'm finding the dynamic range on L'Enfant Sauvage it's much more interesting. There's much more pop and sizzle on this one, I find. It's not as compressed. It's just a great sound. I think the dynamics are more effective on this album than I've heard from the band in the past. And again, we've got a short, focused song here, so they get in, do what they got to do, and get out without too many twists and turns along the way, which, has been a sort of observation in the past. So much more focus.
So it's interesting because I have that note as well. I don't have it here. I have it later, but I'll say it here since you brought it up. Just this idea that when we had last talked, we were talking about The Way of All Flesh, and I couldn't decisively say what I felt about The Way of All Flesh as compared to From Mars to Sirius. However, this one, just just the sound alone, right? Just the sound alone of just the experience of listening to this album really kind of just put this one up at the top for me. And it is, it's the layers, it's the density, it's the way that the band seems to be, there's just so much engaged. And that's that part of me. Maybe that's why it took 4 years, right? Maybe it was just kind of piecing it all together.
Agreed. We haven't discussed much in terms of lyrical content so far. The act seems to be about sort of finding strength within the lyrics generally are a bit more obscure. It's harder to discern the meaning in any given song, but they've pretty much been positive sort of calls to action so far. And this one is, the axe was about finding the strength within yourself, I think.
That's what I gather. I think the motif of this album that's sort of laid out through the lyrics, and I think we're almost following it chronologically, is sort of him just dealing with fame, whether it's him or it's representing all 4 people in the band, but it's just sort of this kind of coming to terms with where they were is sort of an exploration of where they are. So, all right, are we track 4?
Liquid Fire.
I don't know why I get so excited whenever I get robot vocals.
Me too.
But whenever I get robot voices, it's just exclamation points.
We've got a faster song here, so we're back. We're going from the stomper back to a bit more sense of urgency in this song.
Yep,
we sort of got that galloping metal, Iron Maiden-y sort of tempo quality, at least early in the song.
Yeah, well, and the outro from the axe does feed nicely into the intro of this one. But then again, as you said, there's the rhythm shifts and it sort of builds from there.
Interestingly, I noticed there was we had the anthemic. There's a sort of anthemic quality in the verses, and then a galloping chorus, which is the reverse of what you would normally expect. You'd normally expect the anthemic part to be the chorus, and then you'd gallop through the verses. They've sort of switched that here, which creates a bit of interest, I think. The lyrics move from I to we, so it seems to be about rebuilding society, doing things in a better way. We build a life straight. So it seems to be about taking stock of where we are and trying to change things for the better, I guess. But yeah, let's go. Track 5, The Wild Healer.
So here's why I want to jump into this one.
Right.
So here's what I'm finding and this is the reward of what we're doing, right? This is the reward of the fact that we're going through each album meticulously, track by track, is the fact that I'm I hear those stylistic features of now what I say, oh yeah, that's Gojira, right? But there's no way I could have identified. I think this one sort of has that 2-hand tapping sound again. They weren't even doing this in the first couple albums. This didn't come till later. And it's here in sort of this instrumental track, which I really like, and it's a diversion from everything else we've heard so far on this album. But it's that 2-handed tapping sound. There seems to be some sort of synth. I don't know if it's an actual synth or if it's a synth pedal, it's just an effect that they're using on the guitar. I like the melody. I like the other thing that I really like that they're doing with this album is that they're playing with space, right? This idea that even Mario, we haven't talked about it. We're on track 5 and we've not even mentioned his name yet. But the fact that Mario Duplantier is actually, he's doing so much with space, right? I mean, for the first 3 albums, it was just frenetic, just constant, right? It was like somebody just wound up his legs, and then, whenever his legs ran down, the song was over. And with now, there's that sort of attention to space and letting other instruments in. And we saw it in the last album. But I think this song is a great example of that.
Yeah, well, this is the rap song on the album with no lyrics, but, they have had a couple of go at rapping type songs on previous albums, including on the last one. And this has the sort of rap beat, but, no lyrics. No Cypress Hill this time. It also has almost like guitar solos, and not quite. And we haven't really discussed the lack of solos for this band much to this point. But we're starting to hear what's his name, Christian Andreu.
Yes,
We're starting to hear his personality shine through again and again, and we hear it on this track too, with some nice melodic, almost solos in the background. My only criticism with this song is I thought it ended too abruptly, and I have that criticism again later in the album. Like they got into this nice rappy, laid-back groove, and they didn't know what to do at that point, so they sort of panicked and jumped to the next song. It felt like.
Shall we panic and jump to the next song?
Yeah, let's panic. Planned obsolescence.
First off, if we're titling this podcast anything, it's right here. One day we'll wake up from this absolute nonsense. What is this in the last? I think this is in the outro of the song. It's one of the last thing he says, and it was just I heard that and I was just like, damn right, Joe. could not have put it better myself. Yeah,
this is the heaviest opening on the album. It sounds like that. You think this is going to be the heaviest song. It's not throughout. It changes later on, but the opening minute or so of this is really heavy. Thrashy drums, really heavy sound. The middle parts of this are just superb. There's a change. I've written it down at 1:15 into a slow, swinging riff. There's some real groove. I love the riff. There's two riffs throughout this song that I love. We get a little vocal effect as well at that point, and a nice restrained chugging riff again at sort of the 2.5 or so minute mark. But it's just crushing, and there's that just a little hint of swing that in those riffs that just you can't help but nod your head at that point. It finishes back with a thrashy section, but I just love the middle section of this song. I think it's as good as I've heard them, purely from a metal riff, bang your head kind of perspective. The middle part of this song is superb.
It's first off, I agree with you completely. This is, in fact, I marked this as one of my favorites on the album, and I like how with this one, if you were to put 6 and 9 together, the track 6 and track 9, and we can talk about that when we get there, but how this one sort of bookended with kind of the heavier, thrashier bits, but then, as you said, kind of that swingy groove in the middle, and then you sort of contrapose that with track 9, which we can talk about when we get there. But yeah, this is one of my favorites. I don't think it's my favorite, but it's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a great song, and it does have quite a different outro again, and outros. There's great outros throughout this album, but this one's a real trippy outro, quite a contrast to the rest of the song. It's got the drums almost sound like a heartbeat, and there's like some sort of synthy sound. I don't know if it's the bass again. It's hard to identify, but it fades out that last minute. Very different to the rest of it. Very good.
Track 7 is Mouth of Kala. You know what's interesting about this song is that, just given our own personal story, right? The fact that we both reside in Indonesia and have lived in India, and just sort of the connection of Kala to both India and Indonesia.
Yeah, I believe it's a god that Indonesians, it's something to do with the doorways or something. They draw it on the doorways of their houses or something. I'm not
right. So in India, Kala is a representation of Vishnu, right? It's one of the forms of Vishnu. And in Indonesia, yeah, it's something to what you're saying with regards to that. I'm not entirely clear. I do know that there's a movie came out about it, an Indonesian movie that apparently did really well a couple of years ago about Kala.
Okay. I'm assuming they're talking here about the Indian version, the destructive god.
Right.
I am become death was that famous saying.
It starts with "There's a river of time," and Kala specifically is supposed to be a representation of time.
Okay. I love the second of this song. It's just drum. It just goes boom, tsh, just a kick and a snare, just a really simple opening. I love that. And then a big mid-tempo double kick opening riff. And again, we hear that separation of the chugging rhythmic riff with the melodic guitar laid over the top. So again, we get the layers and the separation between the two guitarists.
So I don't know if I'm taking any of this too literally, but I'm just like lyrically, what struck me about this song was lyrically. If this song does in fact work chronological in this process of whatever, but the second verse is where he starts off by saying, "The old me didn't survive," and then goes on to say, "I'm nowhere to be found. In the air I dissolve, I'm fading away," and then comes back with that chorus of "overwhelming power, keep on burning," and then that declaration of change.
Yeah, to me, lyrically, this spoke about the importance of destruction as an agent of change. You can't have change unless you're willing to destroy what has gone before.
Mm-hmm.
So destruction, in fact, can work in a positive way. Maybe I'm overthinking it too. Joseph Schumpeter was the economist that spoke about that. Creative destruction he was the term he phrased for the way an economy evolves by dropping off the bits you don't want and growing the bits that are working. So I guess there's a bit of Schumpeterian philosophy behind the mouth of Carla. This is the best outros I've ever heard on this album, and we've got another one here. Just a fade out. There's an atmospheric effect. You hear it in the background, and then it sort of becomes more and more prominent as it fades out.
And then leads us into the gift of guilt.
The gift of guilt.
All right, so this is the one that I think I'm calling my favorite. We get that two-hand tapping style again. I mean, they've harnessed that. They're comfortable with that. They know how to use that. They know how to work around it, and they're building songs off of it. But here, so what I thought was the first couple of times that I was listening to it, I'm like, man, that bass, right? And then as I started listening more, I don't think it's bass. I think what it is I think you've got somebody on the high end tapping, and I think you've got Andreu or Duplantier, but I think it's all guitar. It's just low end and high end guitar. Because when I listen more closely to the bass doesn't seem to be doing any of the tapping, right? The bass is just kind of playing more of a steady rhythm. And so this is where it was when my first time through listening to this album, where this was the song where I went, wait a minute here. There's definitely a lot more layers, and I have not been given Andreu enough credit. And so I went back and had to listen to tracks 1 through 7 again, intentionally trying to find that dual guitar and finding it in a way that I hadn't been able to before.
Yeah, this is my favorite song off the album as well. I think it's my favorite song from Gojira to date. I think it's one of my favorite metal songs of the past that I've heard in the last few decades. I mean, this is I've written the word majestic. This is a magnificent example of the power and the majesty of heavy metal. It does have a really technical, sort of almost deathy middle section, but that intro and the outro, the last 2 minutes are so good. I mean, and you see it, and especially live. I mean, this as a live track, I think they play this usually as an encore in their concerts. It's the most played song off this album. It seems to be most loved by fans. And that last couple of minutes are so good. And it is the neck stuff. So there's a real pulsating quality from the neckwork on the guitars, but backed up by this huge drum sound. And Mario, again, it's less is more from Mario. So he is not, it's not just constant double kick, but he's using that double kick to great effect in those slower sections. I think it's a floor tom or something. There's something he hits throughout the verses that's just has this incredible sound. It's so well captured on this recording. I thought when I heard lyrically, I thought the gift of guilt. I thought maybe they were talking about being a Catholic. Maybe they were raised Catholic like I was. The gift of guilt is something that's given to Catholics at birth. It's like a welcome pack, you know. oh, you've been born, or here's the gift of guilt for you. But I realized on reading the lyrics and hearing the song again and again that they're talking about it ironically, of course. Guilt is not a gift. Guilt is a useless emotion. We need to let it go. And that's what he's saying. I'm leaving this behind. And for me, the meaning in that lyric was also, it added power to what was an already powerful song. So, yeah, a great song musically, but also the meaning behind the song I really appealed to me. And this is just great music, full stop. I mean, heavy metal, any genre. This is a brilliant song. Well done, Gojira.
Yeah, I can't add any more. I mean, you went into lyrically. That whole idea of devastating power comes back into play again. Sort of that motif plays out.
Just to go back to that outro, you hear there's so much depth now that they're bringing to it, and you can hear it as it fades out again. Is it strings, or is it synthesized strings, or is it a guitar that, I can't quite tell what it is, but it's got a real symphonic quality that I haven't heard from them in the past, and I really like.
See, I'm wondering if I would love to see a lot of bands. Well, I haven't seen any on them. They'll kind of run through their sound rig and their pedals, right? So many guitar players I know are so proud of all the pedals and what they use for what. And I would love to see that with this band, because I feel like that's part of what's happening here. Is part of those layers are being added through sort of effects being used on the guitar.
Yeah. Well, I've never seen any additional musicians on their live footage, so I'm assuming it all comes from the band. But
yeah,
whether there's a little extra layer that they add in the studio or not, I'm not sure.
So that brings us to track 9, Pain is a Master. And what I was talking about earlier, I guess, when we had mentioned planned obsolescence, was that this one sort of starts, this one in the reverse kind of lulls you in with sort of this soothing intro, right?
Yeah.
And kind of catches you off guard before just assaulting you with the double bass and the pick scratches and sort of that sound of Gojira.
Mm. Yeah, that very atmospheric opening. There's some more sampling. There's some whispered voices you can hear. It sounds like a female voice. I keep trying to catch what she's saying, but I can never quite catch it, which I guess is what they were trying to do. I also noticed here, as well as previously, but especially here, the cymbal work of Mario is really evident on this album. It's been really well recorded, the cymbals, really clear. But also, again, I think he's given himself a bit more space so that the complexity of his cymbal work is really evident here and in other places on the album, but especially here.
Yeah. So, track 10, Born in Winter. Here's the aforementioned ballad. If this, right, this is one of the closest things they have to a ballad. I like this song. I think that this is a great song. I like the sort of the rhythm of the guitar, right? That sort of rhythmic guitar sound. I like the way that plays over the chorus of the bass. I like what the bass is doing in the song. I like what Joe Duplantier is trying to do with his vocals in the song. I mean, he's dropping down considerably, right? This is lower than the range he would, which is I was saying earlier about sort of the typo negative Peter Steele range of where he's just getting down there kind of at the beginning.
He's almost he's almost talking at certain points. It's so stepped down that it's almost to the point of him talking.
Yeah,
which is nice.
But it works. It serves as, I mean, the vocals are its own instrument, but it sort of serves as that, I don't know, another layer of sound, again, to the layers, another layer of sound that's being added to it.
Yep. And then there's a great sort of climax to the song, that We're All Born from the Burst of a Star, and then you get that huge explosion, and you can see it in the film clip where that sort of represents the point of conception in the film clip. It's it's got two big choruses. We go back to the acoustic guitars. It's a really positive and uplifting song with a great build-up, great dynamics. It was going to be their best song or one of their best songs, I thought. Probably not their best, but one of their better songs. But then it just kind of stopped. Did you find that?
Yeah. Yes. I felt like they didn't know how to end this song, but I felt like the intro to the next track, The Fall, was really good.
Yeah.
And I almost felt like the intro to The Fall could have served as the outro to Born in Winter. And I don't know if that was intentional. Maybe that was the way it was supposed to work.
Yeah, I just think as a standalone track, Born in Winter feels so promising and yet unfulfilled.
Right. It needed a winding down.
It needed something, or an extra section, it needed something to tie it all up at the end there, which was a shame because the rest of it is so good.
Which leads us to The Fall. And now the CD, the physical CD you have, do you have the bonus tracks?
No, do you?
I do. Have you heard the bonus tracks?
No, I've deliberately avoided them. I kind of feel like I've got an opinion on bonus tracks. I don't like them. To me, the album is the album, and I don't want some people to have this version of the album that other people don't have. I want it to be, you don't have the Mona Lisa and the Mona Lisa with a bow tie.
Mona Lisa bonus.
Or the Mona Lisa with who's frowning, or like present the work of art as a finished piece, and don't give, again, it's probably part of that desire to sell or to market it in different ways to different groups and to maximize their revenue. I just don't think, I've deliberately avoided the bonus tracks because I wanted to view the 11 tracks that we've covered as the complete album, and I didn't want to be colored by the others, but I'm interested to hear about them.
Okay.
Should we do The Fall first, and then you can quickly talk
Yeah,
about the bonus?
let's do The Fall, because my bonus tracks are a lot. I have a lot more questions, because I feel like this song is. Again, I had mentioned how I like the way that it sort of starts. I like the way that it feeds in. But it also, I like how it ends. Right. I felt like this song just it ended, and it was just sort of this album ended. Everything just felt like it had its right end, because normally what the last several albums is always you listen in and you get something happening at the end, or something to kind of the last track is 10 minutes long, it's 3 minutes of song, 5 minutes of space. This didn't have that. It was ended. The full package felt complete.
Yeah, I agree. I thought this was an excellent album closer, and it captured a lot of the things that they've included throughout this album. There's some experimental vocals here, but there's some layering, layered vocals, big drum sound, all the things that have made this album so enjoyable up to this point. And we're talking about the cycle. It's fairly obvious. The lyrics are about the cycle of the seasons as a metaphor for life. So that here we're talking about the fall, the falling leaves, and we've gone through a cycle of life, and then at the end you get autumn, and we head back into winter. Really good album closer. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and I didn't want anything else after this.
Yeah,
You got 2 extra tracks.
I have the 2 extra tracks, and I guess my question was, so I assumed that you had them too, because everything that I was looking at looks at like pretty much if you get the album now, it comes with 13 tracks instead of 11, but apparently that's wrong, because then my point was going to be, why are they still being called bonus tracks if that's the way that you get this? But okay, so
My version ends with The Fall. My version ends with The Fall.
Okay, for this emptiness, the only thing I wrote is, I guess there's always room for one more. So I didn't really have much to say about that one. And then the track 13 is called My Last Creation, and it was interesting in the story, right? If the story goes as I was assuming it goes, sort of this chronological journey through sort of his life from whatever he was, a young lad in France to a mega metal star living in New York. It gave another definitive end, but this end felt more like the end to just what he was doing. I don't know. It didn't feel like an end to the album. It sort of felt like an end of an era. I don't know if it's making sense. But anyway.
Now that we've done this, I think I'll now have a listen to the bonus tracks just out of interest, and perhaps you can. I'll find them on YouTube and link to them in the show notes for our listeners too.
Yeah. So they're fine. I mean, they're fine. But
do they add anything? Do they?
No.
Do you feel better for having heard them? Do you think more about the album for having heard them?
I do not.
I mean, my feeling is always if they add to the album, then include them on the album. If they don't, don't include them.
Yeah, that was going to be my question as to why either they were on there or why they hadn't been on there originally, and sort of leading into that discussion.
It's purely we're on a big label now, and they've got some marketing tricks.
Yeah. Yep. No, fair enough. All right, so that's that then.
Okay, so we're done with the track by track breakdown. Interested to hear your thoughts. It sounds like you've had a very positive experience with this album, but let's just summarize that for our listeners now. What did you think overall on L'Enfant Sauvage?
I think that this is okay. I don't know. Okay, so I think this is one of my favorite albums with regards to listening, to just the experience of listening to the album overall. Now, I don't know that I think that like Mars to Sirius, for instance, if I was to go back to just I feel like the quality of some of the songs on that album are better than the quality of some of the songs on this one. But I found the experience of listening to this album, just the sound quality of it, and as we said before, the rhythms, the meters, the dynamics, the layers they're doing with the songs, I enjoyed it more, if that makes any sense. So
yeah, I agree. I didn't feel as exhausted at the end of this album as I have with their previous albums. Mm. And as a result, I think this is the one I will come back to more frequently. It doesn't demand so much of you. You can just sit back and let it wash over you without having to just focus and constantly adapt to the changes and the bizarre time signatures and the jarring tempo changes, etc. This is an easier listen, and I think a more enjoyable listen as a result. I also love the sound of this. Is production-wise my favorite of theirs. The drums have never sounded better. The snare, the cymbals, the toms, and also I've got to say the bass. The sound of the bass on this, he just chugs away all through this album. In such he's there, like he's so present, the bass player on this. You get that separation between the two guitarists as well, as we've spoken about at length. Some great outros and some studio tricks that I think reward the listener as well. The sampling, the sort of symphonic effects. It's a richer overall sound and a richer overall experience, I think, without necessarily being as drop dead, wow, I can't believe they did that. It's more just, yeah, that's good music.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's just you enjoy listening to it.
Yep. So well done, Gojira. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and really looking forward to the next one now, given that this is the direction they're evolving in. So we've both had the same favorite song, The Gift of Guilt.
Yep.
And it's certainly my favorite Gojira album, and one of the best, I think, metal albums of recent decades, at least that I've heard.
Agreed.
Let's talk band Brownlow.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep.
So I'm still wrestling with my 3 and my 2, so I'm just curious as to what.
This, I think, for the first time, I've had real difficulty with this. I'm going to give the 3 to Mario again.
Mhm.
If I'd heard this album in isolation, I might have not given him the 3, but I already know what he can do. So in a way, I'm rewarding him for not doing what he can do, if you know what I mean.
Right.
The extra space in this album is as a result of Mario's restraint, and I'm going to give him credit for that. By giving him the 3.
Hmm.
Do you want me to go on, or do you want to give your 3?
Go ahead and go ahead. Finish yours.
Okay, so Joe gets 2 again, and boring, I know, but he's obviously the creative driver on the band. I love his vocals. He's singing more and more, and his creative direction, I think, is as strong as ever. He's managed to really bring the band together as a complete unit on this album. His leadership is obvious, and yeah, he's a great front man. You can hear the passion when he sings live and also on the CD. And yeah, I think this album is a great tribute to his creative vision. For the first time, I'm going to give my one vote to Christian Andreu, the guitarist. I guess he's the he's the lead guitarist, I suppose, but there's no solos. But yeah, I love the separation between the 2 guitars. I think they really work together as a team for the first time on this album. I also love the bass. So, Jean-Michel's unlucky to miss out, but it really could have gone in any order on this album.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to have to go my 3 to Joe Duplantier, just for the reasons that you had mentioned, the creative force behind this, even just sort of the vocal stylings that he seems to have fallen more comfortably into. So if Joe's getting the 3, then Mario's getting 2.5 or 2 3/4 or whatever we're giving it. I mean, he's right there, but so Mario's the 2, and again, for all the reasons you mentioned, it's the drumming is phenomenal, but then again, it's what and I don't even know if it's restraint. I think it's just growth. Yeah. Right. And just how he's continuing to grow as a musician. And then the number 1, I mean, it's gotta be, I was so taken with the layers that I feel like Christian Andreu were adding to this album, that he was the only thing I was sure of coming into this band Brownlow was that he was my number 1, or my 1 vote.
Yep.
So I feel like. So we've got. No, I was just gonna say we've got 1 album left before we can announce a winner, but I feel like Joe and Mario have been going 5 and 5 for. No, maybe not. Anyway,
Mario's got to sign up.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right, so we do have 1 more album, unless they release another one anytime soon. But Magma is the next album. What are you expecting? More of this L'Enfant Sauvage Mark II, or do you expect them to keep evolving and keep simplifying, keep stripping back?
I have no idea, because again, it's going to be 4 years, right? I mean, so Magma is going to come out in 2016. So there's 4 years of growth and change. I have no idea what to expect. I'm really curious to hear. I know that when I go to any sort of, if you're looking up, if you go to YouTube, I feel like it's just littered with songs from Magma. So I don't know if it's because those songs are better, or if it's just because that's their most recent album.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward. Very excited for Magma. You've heard their most recent single as well. So
yeah.
Was L'Enfant Sauvage more in line with the most recent one?
Yes, it was, which does sort of indicate that this might be a bridge.
Yep.
But yeah, L'Enfant Sauvage was definitely more in line with what, because when that track came out, I think we were still in like the first 2 albums. Because I remember talking to you and just thinking to myself, I don't know how they're going to get here from there.
Yep, but now you can see it.
Now I can definitely see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's our Christmas and New Year listening sorted. Of course, after that, we've got one more recently released Atomic Bitchwax album to cover, and then we'll have a choose our next band or two or three or however many we end up with episode after that, which I got to say, I'm so excited for our choose the next band episode. But, I'm also equally excited for Magma and the Atomic Bitchwax. So we've got some great listening coming up.
I agree with all those. I've already started working on my list for that.
Me too.
For that band one.
Yeah. And of course, you'll be doing all your listening for Magma sitting on a tropical beach. How lovely.
Sitting on the beach south of the equator. It'll be
with a coconut with a straw in it.
The coconut with a straw. Yes, sir.
Thank you, listener. So this has been Unshuffled. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for tuning in. You can contact us. Please do. You can find us. Well, we've got a website, unshuffledpod.com. We're on Twitter, @unshuffledpod. We have an email account, unshuffledpod@gmail.com. Thank you, listener. Thank you, Small Stone, for allowing us the honor of using your band Seven Planets in our opening and closing part of this podcast. The album is called Explorer. The track is called Vanguard. Be sure to track down the entire album, and you can get it on Bandcamp. Pay for it. The band deserve the money. It's a great album. It's a really good listen. Nice instrumental, groovy stuff. Really, really fun listen. So make sure you get onto that. Apart from that, happy holiday. Enjoy that beach time, Scott.
Yes, thank you, listener. Thank you, Matt. You as well, and enjoy your holiday, and to everyone else.
Yeah, and let's make this our last ever COVID Christmas, and we'll, before the zombie Christmas of 2021.
Whatever's next.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thanks. Cheers.